Hi, everybody. It's Martha Creek. This is a mentoring moment with Martha Creek, and this podcast, this video series is offered to be wind beneath your wings. Whatever you're about, to be about what you're about, and to be inspired here, to get a nugget of something that I would share. I'm blessed today to be with a sister soul, Dr. Judy Blackwelder, who's also a minister of non-professionally a minister, but certainly a minister and a minister of music that I've been able to know now for many years and to serve with. So whatever we bring forward here is to bring through our experience and to encourage you to be inspired to look at what you're about and then to dial up your own luminosity about whatever you're about. So thank you, Judy, for taking the time out to do this today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
I was thinking about, as before we got on the call, I happen to know a little bit about your, a teeny little bit about your life path and the devotion that you've expressed, and the devotion, the hard WORK that you've put in to a profession of music and of leading music and teaching music and serving families in a profession of music teacher. So speak a little bit about your background and what that calling was about and what you've witnessed the power of music to be able to do for the human soul and the soul's evolution.
Well, as far as the power of music, I don't believe that there's anything that can open up someone's heart more than music. It opens you up. You hear certain songs, whether they're instrumental, choral, solo, whatever, and it touches something deep inside you. And you know it, and you may not can describe it, but it has a definite impact. And I believe once we realize that, we know that that is the place that we get to, that we can most easily connect to spirit, to our higher power. And that helps nurture a craving within us to be in that place of openness as much as we can. I grew up with a dad who played boogie woogie piano and harmonica, couldn't read a note of music, but there was such joy in his playing. And I saw how it brought people together. He had a huge influence over me. And my granddaddy on the other side of the family, my mom's dad, led the singing at Turkey Creek Baptist Church for eons. So I got a big dose of it from both sides. It was just a part of life that was very familiar. And so there was a few other careers that I considered, but not, I kept coming back. I kept coming back because it's almost something that I couldn't do, could not do. It's like breathing. And I'm sure you will talk to many musicians that feel that same way. So after high school, and I graduated here in Savannah, Tennessee, I went to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University. They had one of the best band programs for teachers that was going out and to teach in the high schools. And I loved it, loved it, loved it. I tried to be a piano major there, and because I had not been classically trained, that became a real bugaboo. And I actually wound up giving a senior recital on classical guitar. I don't know if you even knew that or not.
No, no. You'd have said, I'll give you $1,000 to guess what my recital was about, and I wouldn't have got the $1,000.
Right, right. And some of them were, some teachers actually said, you probably just need to change your major. And because of your lack of background, and the head of the department called me in and said, we do not know what to do with you. Because any of you that know anything about music theory, that was sort of the separation of the sheep and the goats. And because my ear was so keen, I was very good at that. I just had not been a classically trained musician. So I changed to journalism because I like to write. But see, that has come forth too, because it pairs with music really, really well. So I graduated from MTSU with a Bachelor of Music degree, and started teaching the next fall. And I remember the day I thought, I just get up and go to work every day and play music with kids and get paid to do that. How cool is this? It was one of those aha, and at that point I thought, I'll do this for the rest of my life till they kick me out. And, the aging process and being outside in the elements with marching band, that kind of changed my mind on the tail end. But you said something about WORK. Worth every minute of it. And I know I told, used to tell my kids, and it's a quote from somebody, I don't remember the exact quote, but if you get a job you love, you'll never work a day.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I felt my entire career. I got my master's in teaching at the University of North Alabama because I thought, if I'm going to stay in this, and met some wonderful, wonderful people throughout my teaching career of 39 years. And when I retired after 39 years, the last 31 were in Nashville, Tennessee, in that fairly large system. I still had 175 sick days because I was one of those people, I just loved my job so much. And I realized the longer I taught how very blessed I was to know that feeling. So, and then I did get my doctorate, and that was about career ladder and steps. And I had a principal that was saying to me, if you're going to stay then in this, you need to do this. And I certainly appreciate him. But at the same time, and ever since I had been, probably 10 years old, because of my love for piano, and because I was raised in a rural Baptist church, back to where I am right now. Will you play for church? Well, I didn't really want to. My mother would get mad at me because I didn't really want to, because I didn't want to play it like I had heard it played. I wanted to throw in a few more jazz and boogie woogie licks. And, a lot of people thought that was funny, and usually the minister didn't really appreciate it. So that was funny growing up. That was funny growing up to do that. But there's been lots of weeks in my life that I have worked 80 hours a week. No kidding. But it didn't feel that way. Yes. And I think that is one of the telltale signs of whether you're in the right profession or not.
I think so too. Yeah.
And now I'm back here on the Tennessee River, and I'm about 200 yards from the house that I grew up in. The name of the street that we live on is my last name. The land belonged to one of my great uncles, and his son developed it. And the peace and the quiet is just will transport you to a place, especially if you've lived in a city for a while, it's just indescribable. If I were advising someone going into teaching at this point, it would be about, do you really have the passion to do whatever it takes? And the other big piece of this for me, with the students that I taught and with choir members and soloists at church, because I have always been involved in that, the relationships that you develop. And I have long been, even before I got into New Thought, a believer of everybody crosses your path for a reason. There are no accidents. Sometimes you don't know exactly what those reasons were until they've gone. But there is a learning from both sides always involved in that. So, like some other New Thought people, when I left and went to Nashville to teach, I was like, there's too many things that don't resonate with me in the religion that I have experienced so far. And I think because I've always been a country girl at heart, and loved being outdoors and loved being on this river. It's never been hard for me to say I'm spiritual, I'm not religious,
Yeah.
because of all that helped and because it made me feel. So when I got into Unity and started working in the music program, I was like, these songs, they don't work. These songs I played in the Baptist church, they don't work. And that's actually when I started writing.
Mhm.
I had written some for high school choirs, but it has just been, you've heard of the phrase labor of love, except for most days, I must say, it did not feel like it was labor.
Yeah.
It was just sheer delight. Um, and I asked someone sometime, and you may know the answer to this question. I thought it was scriptural that said, to whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah.
And that has always, is that a scripture, Martha?
Well, for us, it is. I don't know what scripture it came from. Though it sounds biblical to me too, but it's like, it's also metaphorical to that we have a responsibility of this. And at least I believe it, and I believe you do, Judy, that we have been given certain gifts, that
Right.
we've been equipped with something, that your dad was equipped, your dad had gifts.
Yeah.
And that we are here then to use those gifts. And that to the degree that we do, if we use the gifts we've been given, then it's not going to be so heavy. It's not going to be so WORK-ish, even though it's long hours or sacrifices certainly,
Yeah.
and labors and things like that. My friend Glenn, who lived to be 83, used to say, I'm a good tired. I'm a good tired.
I like that a lot.
That's what it meant. It's like, and I'm a good tired, often a good tired. And I feel like it's a good use of me. It's a
Right.
good use of whatever gifts I've been given to do that. And it comes with a lot of responsibility. And and you talk about hard work, which I had a Mary Kay sales director. Then I had 3 jobs and was going to college full time. And I was excelling at Mary Kay, and people would say, Martha is so lucky. Martha is so lucky. And she spun around one day on those big high heels of hers and said, I don't want to hear anything about Martha being lucky anymore. Luck is spelled WORK. And the harder you work, the luckier you'll get.
Right.
And it's a mix of I made it look easy. And so I looked lucky, and Lord knows I am. Like I live a life of grace and providence and serendipity and synchronicity and things like that. And it's not without labor. It's
Right.
not without doing some things I don't want to do. And
I,
and getting up again and going in again and being outdoors in a marching band and traveling and living in hotels and all sorts of things.
yeah. And I think some people really miss the mark on that, because I have had people look at me and say, oh, you are so lucky because all you do is you just play music all day.
Mhm.
And with some, I share, yes. And after I moved to Nashville, I got a real estate license, and I have managed by myself, water heaters broken in the middle of the night, 5 pieces of rental property, because that helped me get to where I could just play music if I want to.
Absolutely.
But there is that responsibility, and I think if we don't take that seriously, we miss such a blessing ourselves. Um, I just love the fact that I remain connected to so many of my former students, that I knew 60 years ago. And I'm really telling my age here, but I don't care. Uh, but it's just wonderful. I mean, I have played for many a wedding of a former student. I have played for
Speak
memorial.
what I meant about your ministry. It was a ministry, and other people,
Yes,
bartenders
what?
are ministers, and hairdressers are ministers. And it's like, I say, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. So you'll never hear me say nonsense. It's like, yes. So, like the ministry of that, to be there at their weddings, to be there at their baptisms, to be there at their memorials and their
yeah,
families' memorials and things like that. And
yeah,
for them to still light up when they see you. And I've seen people see you that were students, and I see what happens in them, and it speaks to how they were touched by you. Nothing to do with what instrument they played or what award they got or whatever, that they know that you cared about them and that you were there for them. You and I've talked also about tough love and how you had to have strict boundaries with teenagers and the lives of
Oh yeah.
teenagers and things like that, and how that served them.
You know, I may have shared this with you, but one of the last years that I taught, when we were having evaluations by our principals, one of the assistant principals came in to evaluate me, and I knew that she had her degree was in mathematics. And at that point in time, I had it had become a practice for me because I liked using, even though it was band, concert band, wind instruments, and percussion. They always knew how I valued the piano and how I incorporated that into teaching them. And so when the bell rang, I would go do a little bit of hall duty to make sure kids were clearing the halls. And then as my kids came in and got their instruments out, I would just sit down to the piano and just play something very calm, and I could tell it was almost an experiment I was doing on them and they didn't even know it. I could tell, and I figured I would get that outcome, that it was really calming and solidifying their energy. And so the math principal came in, dear lady, and when we had our post conference after the evaluation, uh, she said, I had no clue what you were doing theoretically with those kids, not one. I don't know anything at all about it. She said, all I can tell you is there was a lot of love in that room. And I thought, wow, that's probably one of the biggest compliments to me
Yes.
that an administrator has ever said.
Yes, and the fact that she was aware of it too, honey, that
Yes,
it was so palatable that she was aware of it too, that
she knew
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
I also wanted, so there's a couple of things here I think are very, very important to shed further light on, Judy, and that is how leaders, counselors, coaches, the people in your college redirected you,
yep.
and they did it based on their own thinking. They did it
Right.
based on their own standards. And whoever's listening to this, be prepared for that it may look like that you're losing something, or that you've lost something, or they can't see you, or they're not validating you in some way, but to
Right.
see that even though we can't see things like this, there's a purpose to this.
Absolutely.
There's a purpose for getting redirected to leaning into journalism or developing some skill in writing where you already had a higher gift and skill in music, and it still didn't usurp your music ministry or your profession in music or anything like that. So say a little bit about how people that may have felt like they lost something or somebody told them not to do it. There's every successful person's got some story about they said you can't write or you can't act or you'll never amount to a hill of beans or something like that. So
Well, you know, people that know me well, and I consider you one of those people, you can imagine the impact it had when they said to me, you can't play the piano. I mean, it was momentarily, or I would say a little bit longer than momentarily, devastating.
devastating, sure.
Devastating, because I had never considered anything else, really. But you just have to give yourself some time when people do not validate who you are or your potential and what's within you. You just have to go inside yourself and go, I was not given this. It has some higher purpose,
Yeah.
or I would not have this in my heart.
Yes, and they can't see it.
And they can't
Like,
see
they don't
that.
know that. They don't know how much in my bones and blood this is.
No, they don't. And because of the circle that I ran in, I did, and I didn't want to say, I told you so. But I did have the experience of some of those people who told me, no, you can't do this. Seeing 15 years later what I was able to do. And so that's why I say to everybody when they can't figure out why something has happened to them, you may not figure it out for years, but that twofold lesson, because I can't help but believe that some of the naysayers went, oh, maybe I read that wrong. And maybe next time there's a situation similar, I will be a little bit more considerate of all the options for that person.
Well, I hope so. And I think that's what you meant when you alluded to we're all in each other's lives for a reason.
We are.
And that we're here to learn. They're here to learn lessons too. And
That's
that they
right.
can learn lessons off of that if they're learnable, if they're
Right.
teachable, if they're awake whatsoever, to say, I was off on that. Or like I had my perspective was far too limited on that, or I was too stuck in the standards
Yeah.
to see that this is a kid that's got music, piano playing in her bones and blood from two sides of a family here. So even though not classically trained, like I can't let that stop me from developing that piano out of through.
Right. Right. Yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying. You know, if you got it inside you,
Yeah. And I was really resonant when I heard the words from you. And I usually ask coming into these, I want 2 words or less. Like it's going to be like one of my ahas. And it was higher purpose, that it's used for a higher purpose. Whatever our gifts are being used for a higher purpose. And we may never see it. And I talk to ministers every day that are questioning, did I matter? Did I have any impact? Did it make a hill of beans a difference what I did? And it's like, I think we'll go to our graves questioning that to some degree.
I think you're right. And we're not going to know the total impact. Um, and I think I have experienced some of that with, you know, Facebook drives me insane with all the political hoopla and all the people arguing back and forth. That serves no good purpose. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. But I've had a couple of kids from way back ask me to be their friend and say, Miss B, I was Miss B, not Dr. B then. Miss B, you have no idea how much you helped me. And that was, you know, worth the whole thing.
Yeah.
But we're not always going to know.
That's what I say too, honey. I had 3 of my extended family's kids here that were 3, 5, and 7.
Wow.
And big energy, big kid energy, and they were new here. And I mean, it's just like a playground, wild as bucks. And I promote some of it and then
Sure.
it. And when they left, I got to go buy them bicycles.
Oh.
They said their caregiver said the next morning their eyeballs opened and they were like, can we ride our bikes? And they sent a picture of me with them kids riding the bikes down this big old dirt road right in front of the house where I was raised, right on the same property where I was raised. And I thought that's what people mean by the labor is worth it.
That's right.
Like what that bicycle will do for those kids, what having a bicycle, and then remembering what a bicycle did for me, what I got a bicycle and how intent I was on learning how to ride that thing.
Right.
I don't know how many times I'll fall over, but I'll just get right back on it and keep going. So I wanted to speak a little bit today too about what called you, because some people, you know, there's different schools on this that will all go home one time or the other. You go home in a cardboard box, or you go home in your coffin or whatever, but everybody's going to go home one way or the other. But
I think it's a pine box in the country, Martha.
Okay, well, that's an upgrade from the cardboard box, I guess, honey, the pine box. And that there's something about us that still longs for something that was there. It's in our root system, it's in our bones and blood or whatever. So what called you? What do you think that was about during your and you know, we call it retirement, but as I said with Denise and others, it's really you're going back into entirement. It's just you're not limited to one job. You're not limited to how I'm going to spend today. So that we're freed up from some of that we've devoted such attention to say, I'm back into the whole of the world now. I'm back into nature. I'm back into really discerning the rest of me, that I'm not that identity. That identity can dissolve some. I'm not going to stop being a minister. I'm not going to stop playing music. I'm going to find new ways to play piano. I'm going to find new ways to have people to experience my music. Right. So I believe it is going into an entirement. So what about going home, honey? What about leaving the big city and going back to the river? What was that about?
Well, and I would say, and I may have said this already, at heart, I've always been a country girl. And I realized not to put anybody down, but growing up in the country, you learn things. You get a little of what my granddaddy called common sense things, that everybody is not blessed to have those opportunities that create that learning. And that was very ingrained in me. But I just love the quiet. I love animals. I love animals. We're down to 4 dogs and 2 cats right now. And I say down to, um, we're getting another puppy that's like Tucker in a couple of weeks, first of March. But it just feels, it's about the peace of having done what I needed to do and going to somewhere that's comfortable, that's familiar, that's getting in our boat and riding up and down the river and seeing places that I remember when I was 5 years old. And knowing too that I was not always validated even here at home. And seeing some progress in this community that I've come back to, some more openness that was not here. That I'm sure I'm so appreciative of that in the people here. And I feel very loved here. I feel very validated here now. And we'll have the chance to share some of my talent here, when the occasion arises. But that whole thing, like you said, that calling deep within us, it's there. It's definitely there. I've had some healing with some people, and I love that I've been able to do that. No unfinished business. I don't like unfinished business, no matter what it's about. So it's comfortable. Denise and I were coming home from Nashville and having to spend the day with the kids and the grandparents and everything on Saturday, and we were pulling the driveway, and we were both tired. And I said, okay, I'm thinking about what do I absolutely have to get out of the car. And it was like my briefcase, and we've got presents, we've got all kinds of stuff, and no apprehension at all about leaving them in the car overnight, and you've been here, so you know, but it's just, it's a peace and a comfort and a back to my roots thing, and being at a place in my life where I can focus strictly on all the good things about my roots.
Yeah.
Because I love my family.
Yeah, it shows, honey. And I think it comes from your own spiritual work, honey, and your devotion to say that they're coming, that you're meeting them wherever they are. You've not been willing, even at times when you weren't validated or feeling validated, that you didn't abandon yourself and spiritually abandon yourself to say that, I am what I am. I am who I am, and whoever can bear that will. And the ones that can't won't. And the inertia of that changes, but to see progress is very inspiring, honey.
Yes, it is.
To know that it may not be even in our lifetime.
Right.
We see that, but that we're contributing to that.
We are.
Through our
own presence in the world contributes to that.
Yeah. So it's a good use of us.
It is.
Well, we may be a good tired here and there.
That's right.
Is there any way, do you want people, so if they want to hear your music or to know what your piano is about, is it going on Facebook, or how would they do that?
Well, back when the pandemic started shutting people in, actually, I started with some old hymns that I learned right here in the Baptist church with my own twist on them, of course. And as you know, I've put something out most Sunday mornings. Denise and I did some Christmas music together last week, but I plan to continue to share on Facebook some of my arrangements, some of my songs.
So her name is here in the recording, and if you're looking at this, you see it, Dr. Judy Blackwelder. That's who she is on Facebook. You'll get to hear her play And you only get to see those fingers. She usually doesn't put her face in there to see it, but you get to see those fingers and what's coming through those fingers. And I can't encourage you enough to check it out, regardless of what faith you are, what religious beliefs you have, or anything like that. Like, just give your soul the gift of soaking up a hymn or a piece of music that's arranged differently, that's got a nuance of something very unique in there through you, Judy. And so any of you that want to contact her, do that. And if you could convey one message to all of humanity, if they don't take anything away from our little chat here today, Judy, but one thing, what would you want humanity to know?
We love each other. Love each other. Don't, and I hate the word judgment. Okay. We're all different, but we're all here for a reason. And that reason is very unique. And if we could just learn to appreciate that in each other, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll be about it today. Thank you for taking the time to
Thank
play
you,
with
Martha.
me, honey. I love you very much.
Love you.
You listeners, watchers, whoever you are, there's a lot of support for you here. MarthaCreek.com for videos, anything in the teaching that'll help you. You're welcome to it, and to uplift it and to get it out to the whole of humanity, which is my vision, to have empowered teachings and the love of our source expressing as us to be experienced in all people. So till we meet again, bye for now. Thanks again, sweetheart.
Thank you, Martha. Love you.
MarthaCreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.